I have finished reading a short book called The Deadliest Man Alive by Benji Feldheim. It is about Count Dante, which, if you've ever seen old comic books, there would a lot of times be a whole page ad in the back where there was someone offering this poison hand, death touch, dim mock situation that if you sent off money and were ordered his book, you would suddenly become a martial arts master. Well, this is about that man who he a lot of times wore what looked like a Dracula cape and had a really sculpted beard, and he would run around and he called himself Count Dante. His actual name was John Kean, and he was something else. He kind of was a con. He kind of was just a thug. He was definitely involved in crime. He was also a hairdresser, and he very much believed his own hype. It's very strange. The whole book and the man is very strange because this is one of those weird situations that you get into with martial artists sometimes, that they believe some of the weirdo stuff that they claim that they can do. He told a friend, like the friend mentions in here, he told him that he could catch a bullet in his hand, and they were like, he literally kind of believed this stuff. He was an actual legitimate martial artist from everything that has come down. He legitimately was good. It's just, he was a strange man, and he was a man who believed his own hype, who was a bully. He was part of what they called the dojo wars, where he went and he tried to blow up somebody's dojo at one point. He tried to blow the windows out, he said. One of the YouTube videos I've seen about him talks about he tried to blow up the whole thing. It really was, he was trying to blast and cap the windows out, and that's when he got federal charges for doing that. But he also was responsible for one of his right-hand men and sort of proteges getting killed, because he went and had his guys and he all attacked this other dojo. It was very Fist of Fury type of a thing, where you go and you've been insulted by another dojo for some reason and you run down there and try to start a fight. Well, in the process, one of Dante's students, who was also his protege because this one was older, ended up getting killed in the melee that sort of followed. And that's the whole weird thing with Dante. He also had a lot of substance abuse problems and was very abusive to the women in his life. And it's just a weird, the people who knew him, it's a weird kind of charmed by him to some degree, but also recognized he was literally seemed like he was off his rocker. So this book, like I said, very short, very thorough, because the author was able to be able to contact a lot of the people who had known him at some point in time and talked about it. He is buried somewhere that he doesn't even have a headstone. The whole thing, they were just sort of, he died under mysterious circumstances. They think it was an overdose, but they don't necessarily. Money went missing when the whole thing. They really should make a movie about this man, because this man was like the anti-hero of anti-heroes, because he was part of getting literally what seemed in here. This was the early stages of MMA. What he's talking about blends a lot of different martial arts styles, and they were using a lot of different martial arts styles to basically spar with each other. That was another thing. He would just basically like take you out and try to beat you up. He did that a lot. There's an element that he was MMA before MMA was a thing, and he also seemed to believe his like mystical weird poison hand thing as well. So it's this whole strange conundrum of who this man was and kind of what he actually thought. I think he literally just was, he was a bully, and he was also kind of had found a thing that he thought he was good at, and he was good at martial arts, but he was also progressive in a way that he let African Americans in his dojo, and a lot of people weren't. That's why he got in trouble with some of the different groups, because he was giving black belts to African American students when no one else would. So there's this strange sort of duality to him that is just an interesting, very interesting feature of who this person was. Now, he was not a good person, that is very, very clear, but he was an interesting person, and he's not someone that I would think many people have heard a lot of, aside from the fact that he, you know, in those old comic books you might see an ad about the dim mock touch of death that he claimed that he had, and see this guy in a Dracula cape, and I believe I have seen old advertisement of a dude in a Dracula cape. It's him. And he is advertising, which he made a lot of money off, his mail order books that he would then send out to try to, because martial arts were very, very popular in the 60s and 70s, that he would send out to people to learn how to have the poison hand technique and all this sort of stuff. But he himself was a character, might be putting it too lightly. He was alternately a hero and a villain in a lot of different realms of things. And I think someone even kind of describes him as that. He did villainous things. He was a person who did villainous things. He was not really a villain, but it's very interesting of what a person can delude themselves into thinking, and what a person who is kind of unbalanced to begin with and looking for a place to fit in and looking for recognition and prestige and money, what they can kind of buffalo their way into. And that's kind of what he did. Was he responsible for having the first Karate World Tournament? Yeah, and he was a major organizer of it. So I'm saying he alternately does weird and not weird things. And of course, as his substance abuse got worse, his behavior got stranger, and that's when he sort of gets involved in the Chicago mob, and there's a robbery, and there's a bank robbery. The whole thing is wild. You could not make this stuff up. It's so wild, and this book packs a lot into about 97 pages about one of the strangest men I have ever read anything about, but also who claimed he was the deadliest man alive. So if you ever find this book, it's worth a short read to read about somebody who was just out there being feral in the 60s.